This week in Sci-Fi, we've got our eye on Discovery disappears. What happened to Season 4? A big week for game releases. And planetary defense systems are a go. Hello, welcome to Eye on Sci-Fi. I'm Raymond Fedora. We were looking forward to telling you that Star Trek Discovery had hit Australian screens on Netflix this week, but instead the series has disappeared completely. A last-minute deal saw Discovery move to Paramount Plus, including the previous 3 seasons. While Season 4 was released on schedule in North America, even other regions with Paramount Plus, like Australia, will now have to wait until next year, which is when the previous 3 seasons will also become available. There's speculation the sudden move was to avoid having Discovery's viewer numbers released as part of Netflix's new Top 10 website. Whatever the reason, it's studio BS like this that once made Australia the pirating capital of the world. But it's been a massive week for game releases. Battlefield 2042 launched this week and is promoted as a return to the iconic all-out warfare of the franchise, although early reviews have been mixed, especially from players. Sci-fi shooter Outriders has released a free update called New Horizon and announced an expansion for next year called Worldslayer. The trailer covers improvements to both releases, including Outriders' point of difference, that there are no live service charges in their multiplayer. Not to be outdone though, Microsoft dropped a surprise launch of the Halo Infinite multiplayer earlier in the week to mark the 20th anniversary of Halo Combat Evolved on the Xbox. The multiplayer is free to play but is described as a beta. It will be followed by the single player campaign launching December 8, which will have standard pricing. At the same time, a teaser was released for a live-action TV series based on Halo. Shot in Budapest with a big budget and Steven Spielberg executive producing, fingers crossed this series is somewhat watchable. Not that the teaser was giving much away, it's due to hit screens on Paramount Plus next year. December gets even more cataclysmic with new movie Don't Look Up, featuring a planet-killing comet headed towards Earth that no one will take seriously, except the scientists who discovered it.
Our guests today have made a pretty big discovery in space.
How big is this thing, though? Like, can it destroy my ex-wife's house? Is that possible?
There's a 100% chance that we're all going to die!
At least it's a comedy with a truly star-studded cast, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, and Cate Blanchett, plus special appearances by Ariana Grande and Timothée Chalamet. Don't Look Up hit cinemas December 9 and Netflix on Christmas Eve. And Spider-Man gets his next outing in No Way Home, which sees a collaboration between Peter Parker and Doctor Strange go super wrong, dragging bad guys in from alternate timelines. As long as you don't think too hard about the timeline, this should be as much fun as other recent Spider-Man outings.
Hello, Peter.
Spider-Man No Way Home hit cinemas December 16. Looking a bit further ahead, a trailer for Season 4 of Stranger Things has been released. It opens with Eleven starting life at her new school in California, but soon gives way to soldiers, explosions, and bad guys in suits. Sounds like a typical day at high school. Season 4 will be released on Netflix in mid-2022. The first launch window for NASA's DART program is this week. DART stands for Double Redirection Asteroid Test, which is a fun way of saying NASA is crashing satellites into asteroids to try and deflect them. If it works, the system would be used to protect Earth. You'll be able to watch the launch coverage live, but fair warning, the real thing is almost never as exciting as sci-fi. The first launch window is November 24, although as with any space launch, plenty could happen to delay that, so maybe don't take the day off just yet. Disney has shown off their new Galactic Star Cruiser resort at Florida's Hollywood Studios. Described as an immersive Starship hotel experience, guests will be staying in a recreation of a Star Wars cruise ship where they can interact with characters in role-playing scenarios. So, not your average weekend away. Playtesters have given the resort good initial reviews, describing the experience as meticulously crafted and responsive, but you'd better be ready to pay, with a 2-guest cabin going for $4,800. And that's before you get a look at all the merch available, which includes full costumes. So you better start saving now, LARPers. This week's members poll asked if the metaverse was really an interesting thing or just another attempt to sell the same virtual world concept that's been around for years. The skeptics were outvoted by the optimists, with over half thinking that the metaverse could work, especially now that VR isn't involved. Just over a quarter think that the metaverse is nothing new or will get screwed up by Facebook. I mean, Meta. And 20% didn't really care. Joining me now to discuss that and the week in sci-fi is filmmaker and director Richard de Carvalho. Richard, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is really exciting. This is unreal. I'm really tempted to press the buttons on the console, but I don't want to crash. So
Please don't
crash
touch
the
anything.
set. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. And as you know, we spoke about in our poll this week about metaverse, the metaverse. Do you think that the metaverse is just marketing, or do you think it's really going to deliver?
I think it's a little bit of marketing. Yeah. I do feel like it's a bit of a ploy that's kind of happening. Not to say that they don't have the technology. I think it's actually quite exciting what that means right now with what they're doing. I do feel like it is a bit of a marketing ploy and the push. I don't know how much we're going to see that or really, the benefits.
As you know, we've been in the streaming age for a while now in terms of getting all of our content online and through online providers. But as you know, more streaming services are popping up more and more and causing us to pay more and more. And so do you think that will lead us, especially, Australians, down the track of turning towards piracy or?
I think when it comes to the streaming platforms versus, things like here in Australia with Foxtel, those kind of cable networks, with networks, especially studios, with studios kind of taking back their content and creating these, the thing that's appealing and is that there is no lock-in contracts, and the fact that if one of your favorite shows or a show that you're excited for, people on a budget, can go, oh, well, I'll subscribe to this. And it's quite kind of affordable. But what we see is a lot of people that once the show is finished, they tend to unsubscribe and then they'll only come back to it after when the new season comes back.
No, with the streaming services, we've also seen that one of the other benefits is that they're able to invest in sci-fi that might not normally get that investment and the green light. And most recently, we've seen Cowboy Bebop on Netflix come through. Unfortunately, it's gotten mixed reviews. But do you think that this, the streaming landscape is ultimately positive for sci-fi content and the diversity of that content?
Absolutely. I think one of the great things about these streaming services is that, you might say you're an anime fan and you're intrigued about a live action Cowboy Bebop. You'll jump on there. Whether you like it or not, you're on that platform. There's a high probability you're going to be surfing, and you'll spend most of the time, instead of watching programs, surfing. And you will come across different programs, and you have a whole genre there of just not only sci-fi from Hollywood, but from around the world. I mean, you've got amazing things from Korea, amazing shows, innovative sci-fi shows from Korea, from Germany, and so curiosity would lead you to that. And, you might sign on for Cowboy Bebop, but then you might be watching Dark or something like that, So I think it's really interesting. Now, in terms of Cowboy Bebop, I think more the negative reviews isn't so much the appeal of sci-fi necessarily, but it's an anime, and I love Cowboy Bebop. I'm a huge fan, and I've only caught 2 episodes of the show, and I like with what they're doing. My only reservations is I was really hoping it wouldn't be like a remake of the anime in the sense of retelling the same stories from those episodes in the anime. I thought it would have been just possibly live action, but going off into different, stories, because we only got one series of Cowboy Bebop in the anime, and it's such a masterpiece of sci-fi, but just of anime as well.
Now, turning to big sci-fi universes, Patty Jenkins was due to work on a Star Wars film, but we've heard that there were some creative differences. Do you think that creative differences with directors and the studios are just going to come up more often because they have to keep such tight control on the universes that they're creating and everything in them? We've also heard that Chloe Zhao might be tipped to work on a Star Wars film as well. That's being worked on by Kevin Feige. So, I mean, these great directors are coming in and bringing their own, but then there's also the studio pressure as well. So how do you kind of marry the two? How do you kind of come out winning with that from that?
It's an interesting one because, I haven't dealt with studio pressures yet. So I come from a very indie background. But, especially with this kind of news, it is really all speculation at the moment, and possibly through the grapevine. That's not to say that there always is the filmmaker versus the studio. There's always the batting of creative differences, and you can understand that to a certain degree. Rian Johnson did Last Jedi, and I know that there's a lot of Star Wars fans out there that absolutely hate that film, and yet that was very much his sensibilities, and he was very much being not only truthful to what he believed was what Star Wars meant and what those characters represented, but also George Lucas's vision. Fans disagreed, and when they kind of came back the way that they did, as cheesy it is, they really striked back hard at Disney. It scared Disney. And for anyone out there, there is the Duel of the Fates, which was meant to be the follow-up to it was the third installment. That script is floating around in the internet. If you read that, that would have been something truly special. But what we actually got was very much a scared studio. So what they did was they basically rehashed they basically did a greatest hits compilation, and they brought back Palpatine. Whether they say that was always the intention, we can always disagree, but they really played it safe, and it was the first Star Wars film as well to actually have a montage, the opening montage, and it felt, sorry to say, a little lazy. You had this great kind of, story and these great characters, and it could have really led somewhere interesting, whether you loved or hated Last Jedi. It was clearly going in a path that could have made that third installment truly something that we haven't seen before. But they really played it safe, and I think that, and the original director that was attached, was let go. They brought JJ back to sort of try and fix it. It led to quite a mixed reception, and I think that's where it was very clear that the studio got really scared. They got worried. Then you've got what they do with Marvel, and what they do with Marvel and introduce these directors in these big kind of franchise tentpole films, and yet they oversee the whole operation. Yet each filmmaker, can actually really, has their distinct voice over the film and over the stories, while still, having this rich tapestry of the MCU and what they're actually playing at and everything. So it's really quite interesting in terms of seeing the studio, relationship with the actual filmmaker as well. And
now, staying on the topic of Star Wars, you're a director who's directed a Star Wars fan film.
Yep.
And you've worked in independent film for a long time now. Yep. So do you think that the big franchises are kind of choking, creativity in the sci-fi realm, or do you think there's a benefit to have them there coexisting with independent work?
Yeah, I think that it's a long, huge debate that keeps going. I think it's both this tandem effort. I think it's one of those things that as long as they're good, they're creating an interest with audiences, and the audience is there. So especially with what we're seeing with Marvel is this oversaturation, of the particular genre and with superheroes and everything. But I mean, just look past the superheroes, right? They're tackling major concepts here, and major sci-fi concepts as well, big ambitious ideas. As long as they're good, then it actually really opens up the doors for filmmakers where they can actually explore, certain ideas and maybe go even a little deeper into the subject and everything. So, you've got an audience there that is obviously craving, they want more, and even though the filmmakers, they probably don't have that exposure level of the major studios and everything, but if they can create that material, there's an audience there wanting it. You can't really create the material if there's no one there to hear it or see it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your unique perspective and your experience.
Yep. Thanks, Raymond. Thanks a lot.
In the next members poll, we'll be asking if studios resorting to their old tricks, like we've seen with Discovery, would encourage you to turn back to the dark side and pirate content. To vote, sign up for free Endeavour Mission membership. Find out more at endeavour.tv. And that's the week in sci-fi. Until next time, stay up to date at ionsci-fi.com.